competed for 7 full minutes, and look, some of that really is a technical issue, right? I mean, he's got to get better in some of those positions, and if you get better in positioning yourself there, that moves from being a loss to a potential win, right?
Well, and you have to look at it and say, I had the lead going into the third period. I just have to do a little bit more to finish it off next time.
Right.
At heavyweight, it'll be Brandon Ngati, 4-5 on the year for West Virginia, the junior out of Gaithersburg, Maryland. Billy Miller, number 6 in the nation, 1-0 from Perry, Ohio. Miller, much like David McFadden we mentioned earlier, returned for the Princeton duel, a win for the Hokies, and picked up where he left off.
Well, and Miller, a transfer from Edinburgh, right?
Yes, that's right.
So he was, last year at this time, he was wearing an Edinburgh uniform and wrestling for Tim Flynn. Now he's wearing a Virginia Tech uniform and wrestling against Tim Flynn.
So as a coach that knows him well, I mean, what does he tell Ngati, I wonder here?
As a coach who knows him well, he's also going to know that Miller's really good too, right? So so he's going to have to know what the tendencies are, because you coached him to do all those things. So it gives you some potential advantages that way. But ultimately, you got to go out and execute and be able to do stuff better than the other guys doing it. And
Ngati, a guy that has steadily improved throughout his WVU career, has been in the lineup pretty consistently throughout his 2.5 years, but you know, a guy that only won a handful of matches as a freshman, had that huge win, you know, against Iowa State that won West Virginia their first ever Big 12 duel, and then showed some progress last year, and this year looking to move to 500 if he can win this one.
Well, if he can win this one, that'll be much better than moving to 500.
Yes, that's right. Should count double or triple instead of just one.
Yeah, there are wins and there are wins, and this one would count as a big win in lots of different ways. So, we have now described the action. You know, pretty much staying straight in front of one another, and nice opportunity. Nice Ngati being nice and quick. So Miller's got some quick, heavy hips too. Looks like he's by his eye or something like that. But
yeah, definitely was uncomfortable there for a second.
So on the one hand, you know, when you're wearing that knee brace, you can use it a little bit as a weapon, right? Because it's hard, even though they've got to cover it up. And number two is, oh, that's a nice high crotch, though. That's a nice high crotch. And he's trying to do it, go back under there and lift, trying to lift. Goes back down to the mat. Ngati doing a nice job of countering. He can reach back, hold on to his own ankle, right? So it doesn't get turned to the side too much.
Time of factor 2 with 6 seconds left.
There's going to be a takedown. That's a pretty good battle by both guys. Miller obviously winning the battle, but he's going to get a 2-point takedown with about 3 seconds left in a period.
Ngati very close to getting out of that, but like you said, with 3 seconds left, Miller was able to do this.
Okay, so one guy takes a shot. He sort of gets in there. The other guy defends it really well, blocks it off, not too much. And Ngati had a nice shot. Miller takes a shot. He gets in. Ngati fights it off, and Miller keeps pounding and keeps fighting at it. And eventually, it takes him about 25 seconds or so to get the takedown. So that's a 4-point swing, right? And that's the difference between winning matches and losing. That's the difference between, you know, being an All-American and not.
Well, especially at heavyweight, where it is tougher to score. You see lower scoring matches for the most part.
Well, is it tougher to score? I don't know if it's tougher to score. I know that the ways people go about attempting to score are more limited because they're hesitant to get down underneath somebody who's 280 pounds,
right,
and have that come down on top of you. So when you're the 25-pounder and you get slightly overextended, your shoulder can still handle that pretty well, and you might still be able to scoot in there. When the guy's 285, 250, whatever, that's not so easy to do, right? So, but as a result, when you're looking at the guys who are really, really good, they do those attacks, right? They're willing to get in there and fight. The difference is they're going to make sure they're pretty good shots for the most part. and Miller's was a nice shot and worked hard at making the finish.
Riding time now creeping towards a minute in favor of Billy Miller. Now over that mark as we go under a minute in the period. 2-0. Virginia Tech's heavyweight. The Hokies have won all 4 bouts so far. We started at 165 pounds. As we mentioned earlier, if you're just joining us, all 5 of the Virginia Tech wrestlers that have wrestled so far are nationally ranked.
Well, they're not just nationally ranked. Most of them are ranked in the top 8.
Yes. 4 out of 5, including Miller, who's 6th in one ranking, 8th in another, and 7th in the third.
Right, so 4 out of 5 ranked in the top 8. Top 8's All-American, right? So you're talking about 4 guys who have the high potential to be All-Americans, at least in the way things are looking at now. There's a long season, a lot of things happen, people get banged up, all kinds of different stuff, but Virginia Tech's pretty good at this top part of the lineup.
And guys that have the experience, too, to make deep runs because they've done it before.
Right.
So we'll finish out the second period. Not as good for Brandon Ngati, although he didn't allow a point. First period, he was able to really battle Miller, while second period, he spent the entire time on the bottom. Ngati will be on top, trying to burn off 2:03 of riding time and also score. Down 2-0. Caution there.
Caution on Miller. Okay, but so even in the caution, right? It's the different ways that people start, right? And the difference between, okay, Ngati popped Miller up in the air, popped his hip down on the mat like you're supposed to, right? What did Miller do? Popped right back up to his knees, doesn't lay flat. In the period just before that, the same thing happened. Miller brings Ngati up, puts his hip down on the mat, and Ngati stays flat. Miller covers him and buries him for another 2 minutes, right? And Miller keep working to get to his feet, keep working to get to his feet. That's why you get ranked in the top 10. That's why you have a chance to be an All-American.
Escape there makes it 3-0. The riding time point a factor as well. Minute 34 on that clock in favor of Billy Miller and Virginia Tech.
Is it me, or are they sweating so much that I'm watching sweat drip from them as they're wrestling in the mat?
And I noticed that in one of the previous matches, I think it might have been Zavatsky, where you could just see the perspiration coming off of them. And
so that also tells you something else. It tells you that you don't just work up that sweat while you're out there. It means they were hot and ready to go. Their bodies were warm and everything geared up by the time they step out on the mat. You just don't start cold and get out there and do that. There's that high crotch again. Try to pinch it between his legs. Ngati doing a nice job of forcing the head down, and has an opportunity, if he does, to work real hard and try to score here if he goes around the corner, as opposed to just, but you know what? He let his pressure off him in the hip, and Miller pops right back up. And he's tried to do this a couple of different times. You see Ngati trying to hold the wrist, right? So that he can't change over. He does a nice job of not giving up the takedown. But that is the match.
Riding time point as well in favor of Miller. So it ends 4-0, and something that's been a trend throughout, Tony. All 5 matches Virginia Tech has won. Not only have they won, they've gotten the riding time point as well, which just speaks to the dominance they've had halfway through this bout.
Well, like I said, those guys, those are the best part of their lineup, right? So right now, you've seen